This is TLV1.
TLV1 Radio.
Great mixer.
I like television.
This is still V1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis Live! National host, me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. We have a great show tonight. We're going to have Tal Heinrich from CNN talk about Maccabi Tel Aviv. Raphael Galler talking about Israel's chances in the Euro. Sagi Muki fresh off his silver medal victory in the Grand Prix in Kazakhstan. We'll talk some fencing, wrestling, and a little more. But first things first, the World Series begins tonight, and we're going to discuss that in detail with ESPN's Bram Weinstein. Bram, welcome back to the program.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. You know, this was not the World Series matchup that most experts had. A lot of people had Nationals, Angels, or some people had the Cardinals going in. I looked up the Vegas odds. The Giants were 20-1. The Royals were 50-1. If the Royals pulled this off, are they the biggest upset winner since the Miracle Bets of 1969?
I think that's a possibility. They hadn't been in the playoffs in almost 30 years. They've been arguably the worst franchise for probably 20 to 25 of them. Their general manager had laid out a plan about 5 years ago to really stockpile picks and just start building from the ground up, and they did, and it's paid off. I mean, that doesn't always work out, but it has. And this matchup is historic. This is the first time ever that two teams who didn't get to at least 90 wins in the regular season are playing one another. So there isn't anybody that saw this coming. Even when the playoffs started, there isn't anyone that saw this coming. Yeah,
even before the playoffs, the Royals were, I think, 15-1 to win the whole thing. That's when the postseason started. Now, when you bring up the Royals, the last time they were in the playoffs, 1985, they won the World Series. And, of course, whenever you bring up the 85 World Series, I'm a Cardinals fan, you instantly think of Degner's call, but I kind of think it's a Bartman issue, and that did not decide the World Series. The Cardinals hit 183, and they allowed 2 runs in the bottom ninth of Game 6. Do you think too many people are making a big deal about Degner's call in Game 6 of 85?
Well, I mean, we're talking about something 30 years ago now. And, what's funny now is, like, this would never happen again because of replay. It'll never happen again. You'll never have that. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, because here we are talking about something that happened 30 years ago, and I'm sure the Cardinals fans are not pleased about that, but there's a part of sporting history that mistakes are made. And, this way baseball is played now, with the use of technology, does not allow for those moments to really happen. I guess there's a possibility it could, but it cannot really happen again like that. So the umpires are taken out of the equation. That said, not unlike when Bill Buckner misplayed a ball against the Mets, in the 1980s, that did not decide the World Series. Ultimately they played 7 games. That was Game 6 when that happened. So, one play should never determine a baseball. If it's one game, if it's football, I get it. And like tuck rule moments, people go back to the tuck rule and say the Patriots dynasty would never have really started if it wasn't for an odd call in one particular football game. And because you're out if you don't win this one, well, then you can make that argument. In this case, a bad call was made. It helped the Royals. They won the World Series, but it's not the only game that was played, and it's hard for me to sit there and go, well, the Cardinals look at that and say they were robbed.
Again, speak with ESPN's Bram Weinstein, telling it like it is here on Louis Live. Let's get a breakdown of this year's Fall Classic. As you talked about, these are 2 teams to not get to 90 wins. They're 2 wildcard teams. We haven't seen a wildcard World Series since 2002, Angels and Dodgers. You figure Giants have the experience. They won 2 World Series recently. The Royals seem to have a better bullpen. They have more speed. How do you break down this year's World Series?
I wouldn't have given the Royals much of a chance. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, so I had hopes that it would be Nationals-Orioles, that we would have that kind of regional matchup, because the Nationals appeared to be the best team entering the playoffs in the National League. And the Orioles, when they got the Royals, when the Royals knocked off Oakland and then knocked off the Angels, the Orioles had every advantage possible to them. They weren't going to face a team with great starting staff. They weren't going to face a team with any power. And popular belief was they had a huge managerial advantage going into it. It hasn't played out like that. And a couple of our baseball people that we had after that wild card game where they were down to their last out and they played a classic baseball game and they beat Oakland 9-8 in extra innings, there were a couple of them, including David Ross, who had won with the Red Sox the year before, who turned to us and said they're going to believe now, and that's what makes them extremely dangerous, that they know going in they're not the best team, but that doesn't matter right now because they're going to go in there and believe that they're going to win, and it's very, very difficult to get a team to lose a game or to lose its will late in the game, and that's what it is here. They've played a lot of tight games. Their bullpen has come through. And their strength seems to be on the back end. If they can just get their starter, and Shields is the one they don't typically have to worry about, but if they can get their other starters to 5 innings or 6 innings, you're in trouble with them. They've got 2 guys who are throwing the ball nearly 100 miles an hour for the 7th and 9th inning, and Wade Davis, who could make an argument was the MVP based on how he performed in the 8th inning out of the bullpen. I've never heard of a setup man being an MVP, but it's a possibility the way that he's gone. You cannot allow them to get into the late innings and they're leading. You will not defeat them.
Now, going to the Game 1 starting matchup, and now Madison Bumgarner, who was the NLCS MVP, versus Jamie Shields. Shields, of course, has not won a World Series, but played in the World Series for the Rays. He got the Rays' only World Series victory against the Phillies back in 2008. The game is in Kansas City. Is that advantage for Shields? Do you like the Royals in Game 1? Do they have the advantage considering it's at home for them?
Not if Bumgarner pitches the way that he has in the postseason in the past. He's got historic numbers, some of the best postseason numbers. And there are just certain guys that are that way. Adam Wainwright had those kind of numbers up until this year when he's gotten injured. He was not 100% in the NLCS. He's got these type of numbers. So if I had to guess, and it's all a guess with the Royals because there isn't anyone that's going to tell you they thought they'd be undefeated in the playoffs at this point either. I would guess that Bumgarner goes out there and throws a gem. And if Shields goes inning for inning with him and it gets down to bullpens, if they can get Bumgarner out of there by the 7th inning, then I like the Royals late in a game. But it's going to be up to Shields to be able to match him inning for inning because this Bumgarner guy has been historically great. And he is the one true ace that appears to exist in this series. Not that that's mattered to the Royals yet, but he is an ace, and if he pitches the way he has, I would assume that Game 1 goes to San Francisco.
And when you go to Bumgarner and look at the Giants, this is a chance for them to win a 3rd World Series in 5 years. Now, the other 2 years, they didn't win the World Series. They didn't go to the postseason. I'm curious if you consider that a dynasty if they pull this off. Obviously, the Royals will have something to say about that. And when you look at potentially the legacies of a guy like Buster Posey, who's kind of the next Derek Jeter, if you will, and Bumgarner's, you could say, a bit of a Kurt Schilling. You have Lincecum, who's on the team. He's won 2 Cy Youngs. So if you guys talk about potentially what this means legacy-wise for the Giants as a team and some of the players in the squad.
I think it says most about Bruce Bochy, their manager. This would be one of the most mediocre team dynasties I think you've ever seen in any sport. This is not a team of stars, and it hasn't been throughout this run. And one of those years when they didn't make the playoffs, Posey got hurt and got hurt early in the year and didn't play. He's obviously their best player and best hitter. They don't have a ton of power. They don't have a ton of speed. Their true ace this year, outside of Bumgarner coming in, was Matt Cain. He's not playing right now. Lincecum is not the guy he was 5 years ago when he was an ace and a Cy Young winner. He's coming out of a bullpen now. He's more of a liability. They can't start him in games. This is Bruce Bochy. This is a Hall of Fame manager now, and I think we're recognizing that he has figured out whatever the magic recipe is to get players to play well in the postseason. He has figured that out. When they get there, they get dangerous. But this is not, the A's in the 70s or the Yankees in the 90s where you look at those teams and you go, it's hard for them not to win based on the personnel that they have. You look at this team, and they're not the best team in their own division, and that's the way it played out. And they're probably, of the group that got into the playoffs, they're the 3rd or 4th best team, and yet they've figured out how to do it, and that has occurred now 3 times in 5 years. I think this is all about how Bochy has figured out how to push the right buttons.
Mm-hmm. So credit goes to Bruce Bochy and on the verge of potentially winning the 3rd World Series title in 5 years. All right, last question before we let you go. Let's go pick'em time. Who do you like in the series and how many games?
It's so hard to pick against the Royals because, who's 8-0 in the playoffs? Like, nobody ever,
Right.
So rare to actually go against them. But I think the stage gets too big at some point. And I do feel like that Yost has been a liability as a manager throughout these playoffs. It's just escaped him that these mistakes haven't hurt them. So if the recipe remains the same and they defensively are incredible and they steal a bunch of bases, and they are able to get to the late innings in tight games and get that bullpen out there, I give them half a shot. But I just think the Giants are them, except that they've done this before. They've figured out a way to win games. They're not going to lose their will. And I just believe that experience matters in this moment. And what's odd is I guess they'll be considered favorites, but not by much at this point. I mean, these are two teams that were basically the same teams throughout the year. And I'd like to see how it plays out. But I'll take I think it's a pretty long series. And also, too, when the Royals finally lose a game, how are they going to react to it? Are they going to fold? Are they going to wilt? We don't know. If the Giants lose a game, that's not what happens with them. So I'll say Giants in 6.
Yeah, that's what I have too. I think Giants in 6. I think the experience and the starting pitching will be a little too much for Kansas City to handle, but it should be a great series nonetheless. ESPN's Bram Weinstein here on Louis Live on TLV1. Thank you for your time and enjoy the World Series.
All right, thanks. See ya.
All right, be well. All right, and if you folks in Israel want to watch the World Series, all you have to do is stay up until 3 in the morning. We'll take a break on the other side, talking Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball, CNN's Tal Heinrich. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live. Over the weekend on Shabbat, a legendary Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball player passed away, and we're going to talk a bit about his legacy because, sadly, he is not as well known as Tal Brody or some of the other Maccabi Tel Aviv players. So here to discuss that is CNN's Tal Heinrich. Tal, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Ari. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic. And again, our prayers, sorrow go out to Tani Cohen-Mintz's family. Again, he passed away. He was 75 years old, long life. I'll talk a bit about his legacy since, again, he is not so well known to a lot of our listeners.
Exactly. So Tani is a short of Tanchum, Tanchum Cohen-Mintz.
Right.
So I'm just letting our viewers know. So he passed away a bit more than a week ago at the age of 75. Tanchum Cohen-Mintz, he's still ranked the 9th scorer in the old times in the Israeli league, with more than 5,500 points. During the 60s and the 70s, he was one of the stars in Maccabi Tel Aviv, where he played the center position for 14 seasons. In 1961, he was Israel's Sportsman of the Year. And he was also doing great in the Israeli national team, where he was the captain and played for 13 years. Ma'ariv, the newspaper Ma'ariv in 1998, even named him one of the 5 best Israeli basketball players of all time.
Wow. So he obviously has a great legacy. I'm curious about how he did against European competition, because many times that is how Israeli players are ranked. So how did he do against Europe?
First of all, he played for Maccabi, and Maccabi during these years was also playing in the European level. He was a member of the European All-Star team in 1964 and 65. And, I guess, Israel is not so rich, I would say, with big guys, Israeli big guys, I mean. And he was a big guy. This is something that our league, the Israeli league, is still lacking nowadays,
So, he was a rare big guy at that time. And was that unique because of the rareness? I mean, Will Chamberlain, a lot of times, not given so much credit because a lot of the guys were smaller than him. Was that similar to Tani, that they said he's a big guy, he doesn't have a lot of defense against him?
To who?
To Tani, meaning if he's a big guy, so did they underestimate him because the level of competition was not as tall as him?
Could be, but even not comparing to players back then. Speaking about today, how many big guys do we have?
Right.
How many Israelis? And he did it back then already.
Right.
So it was even more special than today. Even today, a guy like Ido Kojikawa is considered to be, something precious to our league because we don't have these guys as much, And it's also a disadvantage of the Israeli national team,
For sure. Again, speaking with CNN's Tal Heinrich, I'm also curious because I mentioned at the top of the segment that he is not as well known as, let's say, a Tal Brody. I want to know why that is. Tal Brody's Mr. Israel basketball. He's a diplomat, all this kind of stuff. And when I say Tani Cohen-Mintz, a lot of people have never heard that name before until tonight's broadcast. So tell us why that is.
So first it could be because he was never considered to be an NBA player like Tal Brody, or never actually played in the NBA like Omri Caspi and Gal Meckel. These are names we hear consistently, all the time. Also, you have to remember that at the time, the Tani Cohen means played basketball games were rarely broadcasted on national television. And of course, nowadays, games, basketball is everywhere. Maccabi Tel Aviv is everywhere. And he won 9 championships and cup finals, 9 cup finals with Maccabi. People know his name. Maybe even young kids today, they recognize the name, as a local legend, but maybe they don't even relate it to face or to certain games, like we do with contemporary stars of basketball in Israel. And I would like to add something else. He was much related to the Israeli being and the Israeli experience. Tani Cohen means he was a high-ranked officer in the IDF, in the Israeli military. He served in the force armament. And we don't see, Israeli athletes, not only from the basketball, sports, but also we don't see that often, people who are both developing their sports career and still keeping, the military career as well.
Again,
and actually contributing, at this national level, not only on court, but also, as a soldier, like everybody else.
Yeah, with all due respect to Omri Caspi, he did not really serve a military service. He got a sports exemption, and in 19 he was in America playing in the NBA. So that's a great point, Tal. Last few minutes we have left with you. Maccabi Tel Aviv starts their new season as defending European champions and Israeli champions. They had a pretty good, impressive win on Thursday night. Tell us a bit about that.
So Maccabi won its first EuroLeague game against the French team Limoges, yeah. Well, but when you see the team playing, this Maccabi of this year, that this is not the EuroLeague champion of last year. I mean, they won it, but still the other Maccabi of last year would have done it way, way better, quicker, easier. It is only the outset of the season. We have to remember, and there are still many adjustments that need to be made, so Sophocles Cholzianitis played in that game for the first time this season. He had some weight issues, right, and something in his eyes. He had a problem with his sight, and but you can see the tremendous effort that he needed to invest. Trying to keep some air in his lungs. Sopho wasn't. I mean, he's not in shape, and Alex Tyus didn't play due to his physical condition. I think it's his ankle again bothering him. And here we're touching this point again of the big guys. Alex Maric doesn't have enough impact yet in the low post, and Sopho is irreplaceable at the moment, but is not in shape. So maybe letting Sean James go, has turned out to be quite a mistake, I would say.
Yeah, and Sean was on this program after they won the European Championship, and you just kind of could tell how important he was to the team, even though he played less last year. But yes, in hindsight, obviously hindsight's 2020, they shouldn't have let Sean go. Hopefully they'll rebound from that.
The French opponent, they took 19 rebounds. And, well, this is not a new problem of Maccabi. It's an old new problem of Maccabi, but they will need to solve it somehow. But there are good news as well, coming from the guard line direction. I mean, Jeremy Pargo, he's having fun, Ari.
Yeah.
It looks like he's just happy to be here after a terrible season in Russia on his end, and he's the boss on court. He's setting the tone, and when he has a great athlete like Marquise Hines playing next to him, this seems like a really promising crew. It is not good news for Yogev Ochayon, maybe, because he's getting less minutes than he used to get last year under Coach David Blatt. I mean, Guy Goodis, he has his own way of doing things, and he knows that Palgo is definitely playing better when Yogev is on the bench.
Yes, again, Jerry Park, good to have him back in Israel. Mr. Clutch, as we like to call him, beat Maccabi Tel Aviv back in 2010 and with the Galil Gilboa upset team. Tal, we got to run, but thank you so much for being on Louis Live, CNN's Tal Heinrich breaking down some Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball. Thanks so much, Tal.
Thank you.
All right, be well. All right, we'll take a break, and we're going to talk some Israel football, also known as soccer, on the other side. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live for the first time since 2006, and for just the second time since joining the UEFA over 20 years ago, Israel has won its first two matches to begin a qualifying campaign. And here to talk about that is Louis Live's soccer expert, Raphael Geller. Raphael, welcome to Louis Live.
Thanks, Ari. How you doing?
Hey, doing good. And there's so much to talk about. This is a very exciting time for Israel soccer. And tell us why the Israel team has been able to be successful in qualifying for the Euro 2016, and potentially, excuse me.
Well, the first part is the competition. The first two matches weren't against very good teams. Obviously, Cyprus have had a nice history, and they just came off a 2-1 victory over Bosnia, but realistically, that was a game that Israel was supposed to win whether Bosnia won or not. They took care of business in Bosnia. They flew to Barcelona and then took the bus to Andorra, and they were supposed to beat Andorra. So to be honest, the first two games were expected. The Cyprus match maybe was a bit more challenging because of some of the talent they have and because it was in Cyprus, and psychologically all the Israeli players who played in Cyprus this summer for their clubs, like Maccabi Tel Aviv, Hapoel Beersheva, and Hapoel Tel Aviv didn't do so well this summer there. And, of course, they had to play there because of the war, and they weren't allowed to play in Israel. So to answer your question simply, the competition wasn't at a high level, but as I think I saw on your website, now's the games. Now Bosnia is up in November, and that's going to be a huge match.
Now, this team, you're talking about they had to deal with less competition, but they do have Tal Ben Chaim, Omer Damari. Do you think this is a better team that perhaps Israel's put out in recent years?
Well, I think something that a lot of journalists have been talking about is just the group of Israelis playing in foreign countries, Spain, Belgium, Switzerland, Russia, etc., are actually getting playing time. In previous campaigns, the players, really struggled getting on the pitch. Let's say in Germany or England and stuff. But now we have players in smaller leagues, still very good leagues, getting very good minutes. Omer Damari, as you mentioned, is one of the best players so far in the Austrian league, which is a very good league. And these guys, the more minutes they get to play in these good leagues, not top four leagues, not England, Germany, Spain, but still, Belgium, Switzerland, and other leagues, it's very good. And domestically, Maccabi Tel Aviv have had a lot of success the last 2 years, obviously. And so these players have been translating well with Eran Zavi and, as you said, Tal Ben Chaim.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about Gutman because he was re-signed. Some people thought he should have not been re-signed.
And I was one of the people who thought he should be re-signed.
So what has to happen for him to keep his job going forward? I mean, what does Israel need to finish, basically, is what I'm saying, for Gutman to keep his job in the future?
Well, Bosnia comes in November 16th. Very big match in Haifa. 32,000 people, new stadium. That's going to be one of the most anticipated matches in Israel in the last, I'd say, 8 years. It will be sold out. People will be talking about it all week before. And if he can get a good result there, even a tie, things will be looking good. I don't think he's going to get sacked or resign in the middle of the campaign because it's just that's not usually how it works unless there's a very embarrassing defeat. But he really believes that he can lead Israel to their first European championship ever. And I think people are starting to believe it more and more with the talent on the team, with Bosnia struggling. But it's going to be tough because Wales, Cyprus, and Bosnia are going to be tough oppositions. They're all battling for the second spot. Belgium's probably going to get the first spot. They shouldn't have a problem getting the first spot. So it's going to be very interesting. But this game in Bosnia, I mean, if Israel loses 4-0, I think you'll see a lot of supporters and media be very critical of the team and say, okay, they only had two good wins against two, decent teams. This is a team, that we're used to seeing, the team that used to disappoint us. So they have to have a very good performance against Bosnia. I think they'll have a nice game. I'm not sure if they'll win, but I'm expecting at least a tie. And, yeah.
Now, I'm curious also about the state of Israel's soccer team the last 10 years because the Euro 2004 qualification and finishing the World Cup in 2014, they were in Group 3, they were third place. So where would you rank Israel's soccer team as far as the momentum going in? It doesn't look like they're in a good place, but now with these 2 wins, does it change the momentum a bit going into that big game you talked about in November?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there was, they lost to Slovakia. I believe it was in March. I was at the game. I was covering it, and it was very bad loss. Team didn't look so good. People were wondering, okay, was Gutman the right guy to re-sign for the second stint? Then they went to America and played Honduras and Mexico in a tour in North America, in Mexico and in Houston. And they looked good against Honduras, not so good against Mexico, but people were a bit excited about that. So I think people realize, like I said, the foreigners, I keep saying foreigners, Israelis playing in foreign countries are getting a lot of minutes. They're playing really well. And as long as these guys stay healthy and as long as there's good competition among the players, that's a good thing for the team. I mean, there were 8 strikers called to the national team, which is a ridiculous amount in a good way, which means there's 8 capable people playing a striker position, which is the position to score goals. So as long as these guys continue their good form, whether it be, like I said, in Belgium, in Austria, in Switzerland, etc., it's very good for the national team, and it's only going to, bring good. But to really answer the question, I think people are excited for the first time in a long time because you win those first 2 games. If Israel loses a game in Cyprus, a lot of people don't tune in to watch the Andorra match, and some people even tune out for the rest of the campaign because they say, they couldn't even beat Cyprus. What's the point of watching them against Belgium or Bosnia? So got the 2 wins, got 6 points. The Bosnia game will really make or break the support of the fans and the media.
All right. And last question I have for you. We talked about the showdown with Bosnia. After that, if they can get a tie or somehow pull off a win, they're going to have Wales and Belgium in March. Now, are those realistic chances to win? Because that'll be do or die pretty much in March.
Well, Wales is very realistic. They have Gareth Bale, who's obviously one of the top 10 players in the world, was sold to Real Madrid for €100 million, pounds, whatever it was, and is considered a top, even 5 talent in the world. So they have that. But besides that, their midfield's good. They have Aaron Ramsey, who's on Arsenal, but it's a winnable game. They're not a very good national team. They've struggled themselves with qualification. In terms of Belgium, that's a game that I don't think anyone expects Israel to win. It's possible, but it's not likely. Belgium has, stars from their midfield to their defense to their attack. So I don't expect Israel to necessarily beat Belgium, but a draw against Belgium. And if for some reason Israel did beat Belgium, they would be in. They would make the top 2 or the top 3. To remind everyone, number 3 then goes to a playoff against the team. And if you win that one game, then you advance. So even coming in 3rd place means there's hope for Israel to advance. So things are looking good right now. It's really important to beat Bosnia. I mean, you beat Bosnia, then they're way behind us. I think it'd be 9 or 10 points, and then you could kind of go clear. The Wales game and Belgium game are, I believe, in Israel, March 28th, 8th, and March 31st, something like that. So those are home games again, and then after that, after this March period in the summer and in next September, it's all away mostly. So it's must win. You got to win these games. So the next 4 or 5 months with March included are very, very critical. And if they can get good results, I mean, Israel could make its first appearance in European Championship and in a major tournament since 1970, since Israel qualified to the World Cup in 1970 and hasn't really done anything significant since.
Yes, that's correct. All right, Raphael Geller breaking it down. And Raphael, we appreciate the time. We're going to have you on the show throughout the soccer season. Obviously, not just not just the national team. Obviously, a lot of inside the country stuff going on with soccer. So we're going to have Raphael throughout the season. And so this is the first of many trips. So listeners, get used to Raphael coming on my program. Thanks for the time tonight. And
good to hear your voice. Have a great show.
Yeah, you too, man. Be well. We'll speak soon. All right.
Bye.
All right, back here on Louis Live. We're discussing a little judo right now. On the line, fresh off his silver medal victory in Kazakhstan in the Grand Prix. Back to the program, Sagi Muki. Sagi, welcome back to the show.
Hi.
Now,
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Congratulations on winning the silver medal. And my understanding is this is a very important achievement because it helps you in the world ranking. You're number 3 right now. And it also will help you towards the Olympics. Tell us about that.
Yes, it keeps me high in the world ranking, and it's very important point for the Olympic Games. We started to receive points from I, and every tournament that I win now is very important points to the Olympic Games.
All right. Now, I also understand that to get to this championship level fight that you were in, you had to beat some pretty impressive opponents, Olympic opponents, and tell us a bit about that.
Yes, in the quarterfinal, I was meeting a very strong and tough opponent from Georgia. He's Olympic champion from London. And I know it will be a strong fight, and I was ready for this. It was a long fight. It was a tie, and we get to a golden score. And in the golden score, I fell him. And did a point. And then I was going to the semifinal with another Olympic medalist from London. From Mongolia, and it was good. It was a good day for me, and I succeeded to win them, and I was happy, and I'm happy for this.
Now, you have your sights obviously on 2016 Rio, the Olympics, representing Israel there, and judo is Israel's best Olympic sport. It's got the most amount of medals, and here you are beating guys who have been in the Olympics. So how does that make you feel, especially confidence-wise, that you can do some amazing things in Rio in 2016?
Yeah, it makes me realize that I'm there. That I win in the best, and I can be the best. It's opened me the eye that I can be in Rio in the Olympic medals, from one of the Olympic medals. And if I keep doing hard work like I do now, everything will be okay.
Yes, that's for sure. Again, speaking with Sagi Muki, Olympic hopeful in 2016 and has some impressive victories. If you could tell our listeners the difference between a Grand Prix, that's where you got the silver medal, and let's say a European Championship or a World Championship, so our listeners will have a better understanding of what it is that you accomplished.
The difference, not so...
It's not so much of a difference.
We have a different, but to the World Championships, everybody comes from all the world, from all the top, from top of the world, from top of the judokas in the world, and in the Grand Prix, in this Grand Prix, it was a lot of from the top 10 in the world comes for this Grand Prix, but not all of them comes.
Okay.
You understand me? I will.
It's more selective. It's more selective, the Grand
yes.
Prix. Okay, very good. All right, that makes sense. Again, speaking with Sagi Muki and a few minutes left with him. As we talked about the last time you were on the program, you already had some impressive accomplishments. You already had some things on your resume. I'm curious if you consider this silver medal the top accomplishment or close to the top. How would you rank this recent silver medal in the Grand Prix in Kazakhstan in regards to your whole career so far?
How it's
where does it rank?
Ranking?
Yeah, where does it rank? Is this your best achievement or one of the best?
No, it's not my best achievement.
Okay.
Well, one of my best achievements was to win a Grand Slam, a gold medal from a Grand Slam, and in this Grand Slam, I won the guy from France who won me in this Grand Prix on Tashkent on Kazakhstan. I won him in the Grand Slam, but I won him twice. But now in this Grand Prix, he learned me tactically and really won me by penalties. He didn't put me on my back and for me, and he won me by penalties because he learned me from my last fight.
Oh, okay.
So he could win me like this, and now he blocked my attacks. But now we are working about this, me and Doron Smaja, my coach, and it will not. I hope it will not make be again this tactically. He's winning, and
all right. Yeah, that's something to look for, obviously, in the future, how to defend against that. Again, Sagi Muki here on Louis Live, the third-ranked judoka in the world at his weight class of 73 kilograms, fresh off his silver medal victory in the Grand Prix in Kazakhstan, and, of course, Olympic hopeful in 2016 in Rio. Sagi, congrats on the accomplishments, and we look forward to future achievements. And, of course, we'll have you back on Louis Live in the future. So thank you so much for being on the program tonight.
thank you for inviting me.
All right. Be well. All right. We'll take a break. On the other side, it's fencing. This is Louis Live on TLV1.
Off with your head. Dance till you're dead. Heads will roll. Heads will roll. Heads will roll on the floor. Glitter on the wet streets. Silver over everything. The river's all wet. You're all chrome. Dripping with alchemy.
All right, back here on Louis Live, as I say all the time in this program, we will discuss all sports going on in Israel, from basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and fencing as well. And on the line right now, fresh off her victory in the World Cup of fencing, winning gold. Please welcome the first time to the program, Avital Maranuk. Avital, how you doing out there?
Fine, how are you?
Doing great. Now, you have had, even though you're very young, you're in your early 20s, you have done fencing for a while, and you've had some impressive victories, but is this recent victory in the World Cup, is this your best victory?
The best, yes, but it's junior. I were third in the Europe Championships.
Okay, right.
Great.
Right, so you've done very well in the European Championships, but this was the World Cup. This is the top of the top, and you won the gold. You did the best. So as of now, this is your most prized accomplishment.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Now, we've had Maor Hatuel on the show. He's obviously a champion fencer, and he talks about how he trains. I'm curious, as a champion, how you train, how many hours a day, and what type of regiment do you do in your training?
I train at the morning with my trainer for 2 hours. Then I go to work or something. And then I turn back at 6 in the evening for 3 hours to practice with another.
So that's a lot of training. And a lot of people, when they grow up as kids, when they're growing up, they want to be certain people or play certain sports, have certain dreams. What made you want to go into the sport of fencing?
When I was young, my trainer told me for this that there is a fencing, and you are an athlete, and you can come to us and join us. And I thought it's a great sport, not like it's unique, it's special, okay?
Yes, for sure.
I was thought, yeah, and I liked it, and I thought it can be a good one to practice. I were in dancing till 10, and then I went to fencing.
So you've been doing this since you were 10, and what's interesting is the amount of hours you train. It reminds me again of what Maor Hatuel said on my show. He said he considered himself lucky, but he said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And I'm curious, how much or how often do you speak to Maor Hatuel about being a better fencer and what it takes to be a champion?
So we are friends, good friends, yes. I can take from him advice.
All right. Now, what's interesting is that you're also, in addition to fencing, you also work as a model. So I find that interesting. When you go into competitions, do the other opponents say, "Oh, she's too pretty to fight," and not take you seriously because you also do modeling?
No. There are many fencers at the world that have modeling, and it's fun. It's okay.
All right, very good. And tell us, what are some of your goals going forward? You have this big victory in the World Cup. You win the gold there, and this is your best victory so far. What are you looking to do in the future?
This week I will be in Italy in another World Cup, and then another this year. And at the last, I have European Championship and the World Championship, and then I want to go to European Olympics. It's the first time that we have like this European Olympics. It's like the first time. It will be in Baku, in Azerbaijan. And I want to be there.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, we wish you best of luck on that. Again, congratulations on winning the gold in the World Cup of fencing, and good luck to you moving forward. I hope you win a lot of championships and represent Israel in those championships as well.
Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right, be well.
Bye.
All right,
Thank you. Bye.
All right, that was Avital Maranuk, who just recently won the gold in the World Cup of fencing, and we look forward to following her career later on down the road. We'll take a break, and we'll have some sumo wrestling on the other side. This is Louis Live on TLV1.
אבל הרגע שלי עוד יום נגמר והראש כבד עליי, חייב לזוז רק לא להירדם, נצבע את הלילה בלבן, נכבוש את העיר וניקח את הזמן, בלי כסף, בלי להביט לאחור, נשאר שפויים עד שיגיע האור. לא יכול לעמוד במקום, עוד סיבוב בחוץ, כאן אי אפשר לנשום, הרחובות שקטים ואת לידי, השמיים שותקים, אני רוצה להמריא, נצבע את הלילה בלבן, נכבוש את העיר וניקח את הזמן, בלי כסף, בלי להביט לאחור, נשאר שפויים עד שיגיע האור. ראש בראש עד שיעלה השחר, הירח שר עוד לא מאוחר, העיניים כבדות והגוף כועס עליי, חייב לזוז רק לא להירדם, נצבע את הלילה בלבן, נכבוש את העיר וניקח את הזמן, בלי כסף, בלי להביט לאחור, נשאר שפויים עד שיגיע האור. נצבע את הלילה בלבן, נכבוש את העיר וניקח את הזמן, בלי כסף, בלי להביט לאחור, נשאר שפויים.
All right, back here on Louis Live, we have a very special guest. He is here for Japanese Week, which is going on in Jerusalem. He is a legendary sumo wrestler who's done a little everything from acting in films, making music, and a lot of charity work. It is a big Louis Live pleasure to bring on the big man, Mr. Konishiki Yasukichi. Konishiki.
Hey, how's it?
How you doing? Great to have you here.
I'm good. I'm glad I'm in the Holy Land, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's definitely a pleasure to have you. I got to say, first of all, you're a big gentleman. When you wrestled, you were 287 kilograms and you're 6 feet 1 inch tall. And to tell you the truth, a lot of Israelis are small.
Yeah.
But have they been looking up at you like Godzilla? Like they have never seen anyone that big and been kind of a little intimidated by you at all?
Well, the thing is, I still have the height, but I lost about 140 kilos.
Oh, wow.
Since my retirement. So I've been out of sumo for like close to 18 years now. But I started losing all that weight about 6 years ago. Because at my heaviest, I was like close to 700 pounds, huh?
But now you're about 300 pounds, you'd say?
About 350.
Okay.
350, 360.
So do they say, they look at you and they must assume you're a professional athlete or something? Do they come up to you and say, hey, how are you? Who are you? What are you doing here?
Well, I noticed at the airport people were staring at me. So they weren't too sure.
Yes.
What is this beast? They're too sure. So
Now, you're here a part of Japanese Culture Week in Jerusalem. Tell us a bit about that. I find that very interesting because Japan and Israel have a very good relationship, especially over the previous summer. There's been a lot of interest going on between the two countries. So tell us a bit about what this week is all about.
Oh, this week is like a culture exchange. We have people from Japan that flew in, some delegates that flew in to be part of tonight's ceremonies, opening ceremony. You have people performing, some Japanese artists just go here. You have Japanese food and stuff. It's a culture exchange. And my role here is to kind of represent part of the cultural side of the sporting side, which is sumo, and hopefully we can actually work something out to continue this culture exchange sometime in the summer next year too. So this is my first trip to Israel, so I'm very excited to see how the reaction is going to be tonight and stuff.
Now, since this is your first trip, tell us a bit of what that's been like for you. Where have you gone? Because a lot of people, they come to Israel in their teens, their 20s. You're coming to Israel later on in your life after you had this great career, after you've been in movies, music. So tell us what that's like coming for a person in this stage of their life, and tell us what have some of the things you've been doing when you got here.
Well, I just got in this morning, in fact. Just got off the plane and just got at the hotel like 11:30 and so haven't really saw anything, but we're staying at this great place where my view is just the old Jerusalem right outside. The castles and everything is right outside my room. So
wow,
for me, I was a born raised Christian too, Protestant. Main of my family, my dad is a preacher. My dad came here twice already, so he's been bragging about. That's the only trip he talks about is your trip. So I couldn't wait to come. So I was just with my dad a couple weeks ago in Hawaii, and I was telling him I was coming here and stuff. So I was just excited because as a kid I grew up. I used to go for a Bible school for 7 years and stuff. So it kind of excited me to kind of come and see the Holy Land where it's where it's the real deal.
Yeah, it's something you read about for all the years of your life, and then you actually see the places where everything took place. It's got to be very special for you.
It's super special for anybody, I think, that knows the history of the Holy Land only through Bibles and and stories. But if you come and see it, it's just I know that just feeling. It's just something in the air that keeps me. I just feel real different when I walked in. Off the airport today and just driving into Jerusalem and stuff, it just felt real different. A great vibe, I can feel.
That's great, and it's getting great to have you here. And one of the things that's going on is you talk about the Culture Week, exchanging different culture. I want you to talk a bit about the relationship that Japan and Israel have, because both countries make advanced technology for the world, both have strong economies, both are working together to try to help each other. So if you can just talk a little bit about that aspect.
Well, if you look at these both countries and you look at the history of both of these countries, they're really tiny. And I talk about this all the time. And that shows you in itself how hard people work to get where they are in the world. Because Japan is just a little piece of rock in the middle of the Asian Pacific. And look at Israel. You look at your country, it's just like a little piece compared to all the other countries, but look how much leaders, or look how much you guys lead the world in a lot of categories. So I always see Japan always being like Israel in a way where they're very humble and just hard-working people. And I think the relationship between those countries only gets better because they have a tight culture pool as a people. And they take pride in what they do and stuff. So I think that's very important in any culture. And just the thing that you think about this, you're not a very huge country, but look how much things you do. Look how much well respected around in the world. So for me, I can just see things moving forward even more in the future in both countries. We do have a lot of Israelis in Japan. A lot of good friends of mine are Israelis and stuff. So, I think there's more to come in the upcoming years.
Wow, well said. See, we should tape that and put that as a commercial. That was good stuff. That was good diplomacy and everything. Yes. I like that hospitality. Now, I know you're a big gentleman, not like a lot of people are going to mess with you, but for people listening that have never been to Israel, if they're scared because what they see in the media, the news, etc., what would you say to people listening to this program that have never been to Israel?
Well, you got to think about it. If you want, it's a stereotype that people, be honest with you, even I was, but for me, other than that, I was more hyped about being here, period. And I'm one of those persons that really want to see what's really going on. But, I advise people to come because you don't even know this thing is going on, But what the media pushes outside of your country is like crazy. They make people think a certain way. So that lets you know, as a media person, that we cannot go. There's some media just want to push a certain thing in on TV. So, but it's sad. I think people around the world should come more and understand and see this beautiful country, and it has a lot of history, man.
Yeah, for sure. Amen to that. And that's the thing, with media, ratings are more with war, destruction, bad things than the good things.
It's sad. It's sad we just take advantage of those news to better their columns or their TV shows or whatever it is. It's just sad.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. I got to tell you, sir, this show is in Tel Aviv, but I live in Jerusalem. And if I see you, I'll know who you are. So I'll come up to you and ask for an autograph and say thanks for being on my show. I'll probably bump into you is my feeling, but you never know. But these things in Israel have a way of working itself out, so we'll see what happens. But we really appreciate the time. We know you're very busy during this week, and thank you for giving us some time and being on the program.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Let's work it out. Maybe we want to bump into each other, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't want you to bump me too hard because I'll fall down.
I'm retired. I don't bump too hard.
Okay. We can take a picture at least if we meet up. That'd be good.
Even better.
All right. Thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Good thing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Konishki Yasokishi coming on Louis Live here on TLV1. We'll take a break. We'll have more on the other side. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, that's the conclusion of our show. I want to thank everyone for listening in. Of course, thank you to our guest as well. We began the program with ESPN's Bram Weinstein. He likes the Giants in 6. CNN's Tal Heinrich talking about the legacy of Tani Cohen-Mintz. Raphael Geller breaking down Israel's chances of doing well in the Euro 2016. Of course, Sagi Muki fresh off his silver medal victory in Kazakhstan. He's Olympic hopeful in 2016 in Rio. We also discussed fencing with Avital Martinuk, who won the gold medal in the World Cup of fencing. And we finished the program with sumo wrestling legend Konishiki Yasokishi. So that was a fantastic show. We appreciate everyone for listening in. Stay tuned for a lot of great program, a lot of great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.
הפוגרום של ה-90 יבנה יא בלעדי השב"כ שוב נכנסים לתחתונים מה הם עושים? תודמו גידי ונימינים הם מפילים ראשים, הם מקסימים נשים אני סוחר מזומנים ואין לי ראש של נקבות שב"כ זה האישה שלי בכל המוסכמות ליבות טימברלנד ישר לראש של האומה רק השב"כ על הבמה אז תתכונן למלחמה מייטי תרימו דגל לבן יותר לבן מלבן יותר כבוד מקזבלן כל הארץ בהיסטריה ניגריה בק שב"כ סמך אימפריה אני לא מפסיק, אני לא מפסיק 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 אני לא מפסיק אני לא מפסיק יש לי יותר מ-1000 סגנונו על הבמה וכל המדינה בממתינה שנה היוקוזונה של הרב צביקה פי ואם תגיד מסיבה אנחנו לא נפסיק תפשינונז לעין אנחנו כאן שוב באים יבנה בת ים אותם דגי 97 אימפריה זה דגל משופר חוזרים בצבע שחור זה המוצר הנבחר נקבות רטובות שוט לתחתונים בדואר בלונדיניות חזה גדול כמו ביגידי ברזוהר השב"כ עושים קומבינות מקפיצים את הקבינות עוד שביתה כל הלילה עם עושינות הפוסים כי אני לא מפסיק, אני לא מפסיק, אני לא מפסיק אני לא מפסיק, אני לא מפסיק, אני לא מפסיק אני לא מפסיק אני לא מפסיק ישבתי דיגידי טק מקלט כיוונתי מן נצור לאוטומט מרסס בביגידי פאפה ביגידי מחסנית מלאה דיגידי טק מקלט ורובי קיבלי דיגידי דם 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 זה לא שווה זה לא שווה אני לא מפסיק אני